Hey, welcome to the Anna Dives podcast. And today we are talking about when, where, and how to find the right therapist for you. I believe therapy should be a thing you do at least once in your life, because you know what? Life will, not can or might, it will throw punches at you if it hasn't already. And you know, you just need to be prepared. You need to be at a space where somebody can help you walk through that journey. And one of the challenges a lot of people face is when do I actually seek therapy? Where do I start my search for a good therapist? And how do I land the right one for me? And so to help us answer these questions is Dr. Vundi, the wellness doctor herself, a psychiatrist as well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. You really hyped me up. Thank you so much for having me.
I've loved following you and all your content around mental health. And it's such an important topic. You know, WHO reported in 2019 that suicide was the fourth largest cause of death for young people between the ages of 15 and 29.
Absolutely. And it's 2 times more common in men than women.
Yeah.
So that's 100% true. And I feel like mental health is picking up, and I'm so hopeful because you are talking about it. Many other people are talking about it. So it's not just a buzzword. It's actually drawing a lot of attention. And the more we talk about it, the more we encourage people to get help. So this is beautiful.
Fantastic. Now, is it time to see a therapist when that big event has happened, or should I actually seek one when I'm starting to feel out of balance with my life or low grade stress?
Yeah, so we don't have to wait for a big, and I use this word loosely because big for you might not be big for me. So we don't have to wait for a major life event. I usually say the 3 ways to know when you need to go into therapy. So you look at your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. If any one of those 3 is off, please see a therapist. For thoughts, like if you feel like you've been having a lot of negative thinking of late, you've been having thoughts that are very negative, dark, you know, those self-bashing thoughts of I can't do it, I can't make it, I'm not worth anything, worthless kind of. If you feel like your thoughts are just not okay, see a therapist. Same thing applies with feelings. If you're always sad, you're always having crying outbursts, always getting angry, see a therapist. And behavior is things like you're not sleeping. You know, you don't feel like you're isolating. You don't want to hang out with people. Then you can see a therapist. So that's how you know when you need to see one.
You know, a friend of mine said we live in our head, right? And if your head is, like you said, full of toxic, negative thoughts or unprocessed trauma, becomes a really, really difficult place to live.
Absolutely. Like that's the one person who's constantly with you all the time, the voice in your head. So why not make that place a comfortable place, a place of self-love? And there's something I've been running on my my platforms this week on self-esteem. And I was just saying, imagine if nobody else tells you something positive today, like you're beautiful or whatever. You should be the person who says that to yourself. You can't wait for the person for external validation. Do it for yourself. And that's one of the core things about what I do, self-work. So therapy is beautiful, but what happens when you leave your therapist's office? You have to do those things like, you know, affirmations, positive self-talk, and that's what I push for.
Wow, that's amazing. And where do you start the search? Because I mean, in Kenya, I'm wondering, do we have a directory online, or where should we start?
So yes, there is a directory online where you can search for all the practitioners in mental health, but I wouldn't advise you to start from there. So think about it like this. Finding a therapist or a mental health specialist is like finding, you know, the lady who does your nails or your waxing lady.
Yes.
It's you don't have a relationship with them because you saw them in a directory somewhere. It's you went, you tried it, and then you are like, okay, I like this. Then maybe you give her feedback. You are like, okay, I don't like it when you do like this. And then with time, you built a relationship. So I would advocate for, first of all, just go to your general practitioner where you normally go to get your health checkups and whatnot. Then ask for a referral, ask for maybe 2 or 3. Then go and visit that person, the therapist, the counselor. We'll talk about the different types. Then interview them, ask questions, feel them out. What's their vibe? Are there, because some of them are super religious. You know, maybe you don't want somebody who's super old. Maybe you don't want a guy. So the first session, just interview them. Then later on with time, you'll find the right person for you.
And I'm finding therapy is becoming more and more common. More and more people are willing to say, I've done therapy, right? And personally, I've done, in the last 10 years, I think I've done therapy thrice, not including the people I was filling out, which is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And how I landed those therapies was through friends who are willing to say, yeah, I've done it. These are some of the contacts that I have. And I feel like that's also a good place to start.
Absolutely. So I've done therapy once, and it was also from a referral. And I think referrals are great. They work really well. And especially if you've got a primary doctor, because they know you, so they know your vibe. They'll most likely refer you to somebody who's like you. Yeah.
So there's mental health coach, there's therapist, there's counselor, there's pastor, there is psychiatrist and psychology and counseling psychologist. So please explain to us the difference so that we know who do we go to when.
I'll try and not use big words so that people don't check out. So I'll divide them into two. So we have psychiatrists and psychologists. So a psychiatrist, which is what I am, is a medical doctor. So this person has gone to medical school. And psychologists have not. They've done a different training. For example, we have BA in psychology. So psychiatrists, what we do, we tend to focus or lean more into the people who've got conditions like depression, anxiety, bipolar, substance use disorders, schizophrenia. And this is because usually we will need to engage medication. But that's not all psychiatrists do. We also do the therapy. So we have the ability to dabble in both. So a good psychiatrist is one who does both, not one who just writes you a prescription and tells you to go, right? So for psychologists, they deal now more with the therapy purely. In Kenya, psychologists should not ideally be prescribing. Once they feel like this is severe, we need to work together so that they refer to the psychiatrist.
Okay.
Now for psychologists, which is where we are now, psychologists, there are two types. We have the counseling psychologist and the clinical psychologist.
Oh, okay.
Counseling psychologists, as the name suggests, they do counseling. You know, everyday simple problems. Again, I want to use simple lightly, but, you know, not very advanced problems. So that's what counseling psychologists do. Clinical psychologists work with more intense issues. So they can also work with the people I'd mentioned before, people with anxiety. You're going through a transition in your life like divorce. You're struggling in your marriage. So they can deal with those issues. Now, we also have people who do peer counseling.
Peer counseling.
In this country. You find somebody does a short course of like 3 months and they're able to do counseling like in the church, in school. So those are the various qualifications. But I don't want you guys to sit there and cram psychiatrists, psychologists. The point is, when you are referred to a specialist, ask them about their qualifications. Ask them, what are your techniques? What do you specialize in, right? Because there are people who are good in addiction. There are those who are good in marriage. There are those who do trauma. So your job is just to ask them, what's your thing? And then when they respond, figure out whether it's compatible with what you're going through.
Okay. One of the things a lot of people say is, therapy is so expensive, right? And I personally feel it's a very good investment because, again, you live in your head. If your head is not in a good space, a lot of the things in your life are not going to make sense. You know, you're not going to be able to really fully enjoy life. So where should somebody start? And how can you minimize the cost if that's the issue?
This is a very layered question. So how can we minimize the cost? First of all, a lot of people in this country don't have health insurance, and that's the problem. So if you're one of those people who do not have health insurance, I would highly recommend you try the government facilities. They have a bad reputation, but I believe that I've worked there. I've worked in Kenyatta, I've worked in Mathare, and it's better than nothing. Okay. You know, you might be sitting at home struggling and saying, I can never go to Kenyatta, but you know, this is your life.
Yeah.
And therapy in Kenyatta is about 500 shillings per session. And you've got, so I would say instead of stigmatizing the hospital and saying, you know, that's like, no, I can't. It's just go and try.
Yeah, start from somewhere.
Start from somewhere. We have some free resources. I know Befrienders online. There's a platform called Befrienders Kenya, and it's a suicide hotline. So it's a free suicide hotline. For medical doctors, we also have a free hotline for people who are feeling like they're struggling with their mental health, and it's completely free.
And this is the same one?
No, this is a different one, just purely for health workers.
Okay.
Because let me tell you,
working in that space,
there are major mental health problems amongst our own colleagues.
Wow.
Yeah. So these are the people without insurance. But for people with insurance, I always say, when you're getting your insurance, you know the way those agents sell it to you?
Oh, yes.
They tell you have a cover of 1 million inpatient. Ask them, what's my mental health cover?
Yeah.
Because you can't be selling this thing to me and it has no allowance for mental health, you know?
Yeah.
Ask your organizations, because ideally they're supposed to provide that kind of access to a mental health specialist. So speak up and demand for these services where you are.
Absolutely. I think organizations that take mental health seriously and even say free therapy, we have a counselor within this building, I really commend that. And I hope people actually do take it up.
They do. I've spoken in several organizations where they just have like a mental health day. Even that's fine, you know. So if you're a HR somewhere and you're watching this is something you need to be proactive about. It's not just about team building all the time. Get in a mental health specialist. Let them come to the office, speak to people, and maybe somebody will be sitting there thinking, oh, wow, maybe I need to talk to somebody. Yeah.
So I have found a therapist I think I'd love to work with. So we are in our first session. What should I be looking out for just to know if this is a right fit for me?
So as I'd mentioned before, basic things like age, gender. So, you know, if those are things that you're particular about, those ones you can use to screen. Number 2, any mental health professional should be very non-judgmental. That's one of the number 1 rules. Yeah. No judgment. So if somebody comes to me, a patient, and they say, I'm an atheist, that's not the time for me to start saying, no, you know, the Bible says, even in as much as I am Christian, you know, it's not about me. It's about this patient. And if truly, for me as a professional, if I feel there's a conflict, I should just refer the patient. So look out for that judgment. If your therapist or your psychiatrist is judging you, that's a red flag. Wow. That's a red flag. Number 2, the other thing to look out for is how you feel, because our feelings never lie. So, okay, the first session is never transformational. You'll never have one session of therapy and your issues are fixed, right? So you start seeing change maybe 3rd, 4th session. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Yes. But if you feel you're not getting better, you leave the place feeling heavier, maybe that's just, it's not working. It's not the one for you.
Yeah.
And just like every other relationship, you can just respectfully just find another opinion. Exactly.
And you know, sometimes there's a pressure after that first session where the therapist is asking you, okay, when can we book the next session? And I have learned to respectfully say, let me check my calendar, or and be upfront and say, you know, I'm interviewing a few therapists, I'm seeing a few therapists to see who's the right fit for me. And that is totally okay. Just because you sat in their office doesn't mean it has to be a continuing, you know, relationship.
I get that. But let me also add something. If you are also moving from therapist to
too quickly.
You've gone through like 8 therapists a year. They're all bad. They all have flaws. Maybe perhaps it's time to introspect. Could you be the one who is not accepting the truth? And this happens a lot with people struggling with addiction.
Wow.
So you go to one therapist and they tell you as it is. You have an addiction problem.
Yeah.
Especially functional alcoholics, they don't seem to think they have a problem. So you get upset, you go to another one. Because you want them to tell you what you want.
Wow.
It also happens a lot with marriage counseling, which I don't do, by the way.
Okay.
I don't do marriage therapy because, number one, sometimes one partner is the one who's bulldozing the other one. Come for therapy or I'll leave you, you know? And so this other person comes and sits there and they don't do anything. They are just showing up to show up. So then now after some time, no, that therapist was not nice. You go find another one. Maybe it's not the therapist who has a problem. It's you guys. You're not committing to the process.
Yeah.
Because I think I need to highlight that in therapy, we don't give you the answers.
Right.
No, we don't. Like I won't tell you, leave your marriage.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Unless, of course, I feel like it's a very toxic situation. Your life is at risk.
In danger, yeah.
We help you get to an awakening. We help you get the insight. You have to put in the work. So you can't say that, oh no, that therapist was bad, and yet you're not showing up. You're not doing your assignments. Yeah, because we give you an assignment after every session. You don't do your work. It can't all fall on the therapist.
So true. Yeah. You have to put in the work. Just like anything, for you to actually get out of that, anxiety, whatever it is, just have to put in the work. Because, like you said, just sitting at a therapist's chair isn't going to magically heal you. And
healing sometimes is painful.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable and easy. People make self-care seem like it's always, official and manic. Sometimes it's setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's cutting off a narcissistic person, which is difficult, you know.
Yeah.
So if you're not ready to do the tough things, then maybe you're not ready for therapy.
Oh, wow. That is a truth bomb right there.
I know.
There's this new technique, if I may call it, called EMDR that is becoming popular in the West. And I'm wondering, is it something that is done here? Because apparently it has really, really helped people deal with post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's being done here by a select few. I know a couple of people who do it. So.
And what does it mean anyway?
EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
Big word.
Yeah.
But basically, it's a part of trauma-focused therapy. I'll start by saying not everything bad that you went through is trauma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not everything is trauma. Trauma is very specific. Trauma changes your psyche. So trauma-focused therapy is for people who've gone through trauma, okay? And they can use EMDR to help you move on from the trauma. So usually the people who do EMDR are people who've done therapy for some time. We've tried this, we've tried that. Then if it doesn't seem to be working, now we do EMDR, kind of like a last resort. And it's evidence-based, meaning there's research that's actually been done to show that this thing works.
Okay.
It works.
Yeah.
And how they do it, it's very interesting. So they make, the therapist makes you retell the trauma, the traumatic experience. Okay. And the point is to desensitize you from that traumatic experience.
Oh.
Because what PTSD does, it's sometimes you can't even talk about what happened to you without crying.
Yeah.
Without completely breaking down. And it could be 3 years past.
It could even be in childhood.
Exactly. It's actually recommended for childhood trauma.
Oh.
So it desensitizes you to the point where you reprocess how you feel about the trauma, what it does to you in this moment. So if I can just try and summarize it, when you're giving the story, the therapist will move their finger back and forth or a pen back and forth. And basically what it does, it makes you kind of detach from what you're feeling.
Wow.
As you focus on that.
On the object.
I don't do it. I'm not trained in it, but that's kind of the the meaning behind EMDR. Yeah.
When you did that, I remembered movies where they would swing something as somebody's lying on a chair and they're talking to her. Is it the same thing?
No, that's hypnotherapy.
Oh, okay.
That's another really powerful one. And there are a few, I think 1 or 2 people in the country doing it. I'm thinking about doing it.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Hypnotherapy is also for people who have hit a bit of a block in their therapy journey.
Yeah.
So say you also went through a very traumatic thing like in childhood, or like you've had a series of small traumatic events. You've done therapy and it's like this thing is still staying with you.
Yeah.
So hypnotherapy just kind of makes you release the subconscious, because some things are in your subconscious mind. Yeah, so I'm still thinking about it, but I would love to just explore what it is.
Yeah.
It's because it's also been shown to have powerful results.
Fantastic. And
Yeah.
I'll be following you. Dr. Vundi does a podcast, the Self-Work
Yeah, the Self-Work podcast.
And she talks a lot about mental health in that space. So if you do, please do share that journey on your podcast.
I will share it. Even I also have a YouTube channel, by the way.
yeah.
I'm just Dr. Vundi on YouTube. But I feel like it's, again, I'll have to probably speak to my former therapist to see whether this is something that's for me. Yeah.
So going into therapy is actually really a courageous act. I mean, sitting there, sharing really personal details with somebody is not easy. Even if you are as outgoing and as talkative as some of us, it's still not easy. So how does someone get over that anxiety, you know, as a first timer into therapy?
I would say one thing that helps before you start your therapy journey is to start journaling. Keeping a journal helps you learn the art of removing what's in here and what's in here and putting it out, because that part is what's hard. Because some things some people have never even said to themselves. For example, there is somebody out there who's never even admitted that they went through a particular trauma. They've never even said it out loud. So journaling helps you to at least practice that, right? And then what you can do in your second or third session, you can even carry your journal.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's hard to tell this person, the therapist, but when you have your journal, it kind of guides you. But you know what, Anna, I feel like you'll never be fully comfortable. You just have to do it afraid.
Yeah.
You just have to do it even when you feel awkward.
Yeah.
You have to do it even when you're breaking down and crying.
So true.
Just do it. Just do it. You'll never be fully comfortable to start therapy.
And there's something really powerful that happens when it's all out. And that's the beauty, you know, having this very objective person just listen and hear you. Because sometimes you just need to be heard.
And seen. And
seen.
It feels so, that's the catharsis of therapy. It's that it's finally out, and I'm not a horrible person, I'm not crazy, I'm not worthless, you know. And then when the therapist kind of affirms you, gives you direction, it's such a beautiful process. So when you look at the fear that you have before going in versus the benefit of what comes out of it, the fear can't trump the benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it can't trump it.
Oh, I love it. I love what you say. Do it afraid.
Yeah.
So guys, that you've heard it. Dr. Vundi, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And please follow her on Instagram at Dr. Vundi. Is it at Wellness Doctor?
So it's Dr._Vundi on all Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But Dr. Vundi, the Wellness Doctor on YouTube. And then you can also just type in the Self-Work podcast on all the podcast platforms.
Fantastic. And this has been awesome. I hope you guys have gleaned something. You know, when you're starting your journey, it's a courageous act. Like we said, do it afraid. Just start. And it begins with accepting, hey, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I need help. That is the first step, you know, accepting that truth and going out there. And you've got the tips and the tricks to get a good therapist for you. And it doesn't have to always be expensive. So thank you so much for watching this. Again, remember, we release an episode every Friday on all major podcasting platforms as well as YouTube. And again, thank you for all those amazing reviews and comments. Keep them coming. Your suggestions on topics as well. Thank you so much and have a good one.